Growing up, Sarah was the golden child. Perfect grades. Perfect internships. Perfect everything. I was the cautionary tale, the one who threw it all away. Your sister graduated magna cum laude, Mom would say at every family gathering. She's clerking for a superior court judge. You could have had that too, Daniel. What they didn't know was that I did have that. And more. But I'd learned early that my family didn't want to hear my achievements. They wanted a narrative. Sarah was the success. I was the failure. Any evidence to the contrary threatened their story. So I stopped sharing. When I got into Yale Law, I told them I was taking classes. When I graduated top of my class, I said I finished the program. When I clerked for Judge Eleanor Harrison at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I mentioned I had a legal position. Mom patted my hand. That's nice, dear. Sarah just made partner track at her firm. Sarah would smile sympathetically. It's good you found something, Danny. Not everyone needs to be ambitious. I was clerking for one of the most respected appellate judges in the country. Sarah was a second-year associate doing document review. But correcting them felt pointless. The family group chat exploded one Tuesday evening. Sarah, everyone. Mark proposed. We're engaged. Ring. Mom, oh sweetie. This is wonderful. Tell us everything. Sarah, he's perfect. Yale Law grad. Prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And his father is Federal Judge Thomas Harrison. Can you believe it? My phone screen seemed to freeze. Judge Thomas Harrison. The same Judge Harrison I'd clerked for. The same one who'd written my recommendation letter for my current position. The same one who'd become a mentor and friend over the past decade. Dad, a federal judge. Sarah, you've really done well for yourself. Mom, we're so proud of you. When's the wedding? Sarah, June 15th. Outdoor ceremony at the Rosewood Estate. It'll be elegant. Only our best. I typed, congratulations, Sarah. I'm happy for you. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Sarah, thanks, Danny. That was it. No excitement. No invitation to celebrate. 2 days later, I received a private text from Sarah. Sarah, about the wedding. It's going to be a very elite affair. Mark's father will be there, obviously, plus judges, prosecutors, political figures. Mom and Dad will be there representing our family's success. I think it's best if you sit this one out. I stared at the message. Me, you don't want me at your wedding? Sarah, it's not personal. It's just, you know how you are. The whole, I tried law school but it didn't work out thing. Mark's family is very accomplished. His father takes professional achievement seriously. I can't have you there telling people you dropped out or whatever story you're telling these days. Me, I see. Sarah, I knew you'd understand. You've always been more low-key anyway. This just isn't your scene. But I'll send you pictures. Me, congratulations on your wedding, Sarah. I set my phone down and looked at the framed photo on my desk. Me and Judge Harrison at my swearing-in ceremony. I was now Judge Daniel Rivera, presiding over the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, the youngest appellate judge appointed in 20 years. Judge Harrison had championed my nomination. He'd testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He'd called me the finest legal mind of his generation. And now I was apparently too embarrassing to attend his son's wedding. I could have corrected Sarah right then. Sent her a photo of my chambers. Forwarded my Senate confirmation hearing transcript. Explained that her future father-in-law and I had lunch every month. But something stopped me. Maybe it was years of being dismissed. Maybe it was curiosity about how far this would go. Maybe I just wanted to see if anyone in my family would ever ask about my life instead of assuming. I replied simply, understood. I hope you have a beautiful day. The family group chat continued buzzing with wedding planning, dress shopping, venue tours, guest list debates. Not once did anyone ask why I wasn't involved. Mom posted in the chat, Sarah, what about Danny? Is he in the wedding party? Sarah, Danny's not really a wedding person. He's going to sit this one out. More intimate that way. Dad, that's probably for the best. Keep it to successful family only. Make a good impression on the judge's family. Successful family only. I closed the chat and returned to drafting an opinion on a First Amendment case. Just another day at the office for the dropout. Over the next 3 months the group chat was relentless. Mom, we met Mark's parents today. Judge Harrison is so distinguished. He has a portrait in the federal courthouse. I'd sat for that same portrait tradition 2 years ago. Sarah. His father told the most amazing story about a Supreme Court case he worked on. Mark comes from such an accomplished family. I'd heard that story. I was there when it happened. Dad, the judge seemed impressed with our family. Sarah really landed well. The irony was suffocating. 2 weeks before the wedding my clerk Jennifer knocked on my chamber door. Judge Rivera? Judge Harrison is online too. I picked up. Tom, how are you? Daniel. I'm calling about Mark's wedding. You're coming, right? He said the invitations went out months ago. I paused. I wasn't invited actually. Silence on the other end. What do you mean you weren't invited? Your family. Sarah is your sister. She felt it would be better if I didn't attend. Didn't want to embarrass the family in front of accomplished guests. Tom's voice hardened. Embarrass them? Daniel, you're a federal appellate judge. You're more accomplished than half the guest list combined. They don't know that. How do they not know? You were confirmed 2 years ago. It was in every major newspaper. They don't really ask about my life, Tom. They have their narrative. I'm the dropout who couldn't hack it. Sarah is the successful one. Correcting them seems exhausting. He was quiet for a long moment. Does Sarah know Mark and I know you? No. I don't think Mark knows either. Your son started at the U.S. Attorney's office after I clerked for you. We've never crossed paths. This is absurd. I'm calling Sarah right now. Tom, don't. Please. Let it play out. Why would you let them treat you like this? Because I want to see if anyone will ever just ask. If anyone will ever be curious about my actual life instead of the story they've invented. Tom sighed. You're a better man than I am. But I'm not playing along with this farce. You're coming to that wedding as my personal guest. I'll have Mark add you to the list. Tom. Non-negotiable, Daniel. You're family to me if not to them. You'll be at the head table with the wedding party. I insist. June 15th arrived with perfect weather. The Rosewood estate looked like something from a magazine. White chairs in rows, flowers everywhere, a string quartet playing softly. I arrived in my best suit, carrying the crystal vase I'd selected as a wedding gift. Tom had indeed added me to the guest list, placed at his family's table. I checked in at the registration table. The coordinator smiled. Name please. Daniel Rivera. She scanned the list. Oh. You're at table 1. That's the family table with Judge Harrison. Right up front. I thanked her and walked toward the ceremony area. That's when I heard Mom's voice. Danny? What are you doing here? I turned. Mom and Dad stood there in formal attire, both looking confused and slightly horrified. I was invited, I said simply. Dad's face reddened. Sarah specifically said you weren't coming. She said you understood this wasn't your type of event. Plans changed. Mom grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. Danny, you can't be here. Judge Harrison will be here. Important people. Sarah needs this to go perfectly. I'm aware. Then why would you show up and embarrass her? After she specifically asked you not to come? Before I could answer, Sarah appeared radiant in her wedding dress with her maid of honor. Her face went white when she saw me. Danny, what the hell are you doing here? Congratulating you on your wedding. I told you not to come. I was very clear. Her maid of honor whispered, Sarah, people are staring. Sarah lowered her voice to a hiss. You need to leave. No. Before the ceremony starts. Before you embarrass this entire family. I was invited, Sarah. By who? I sure as hell didn't invite you. By Judge Harrison. She laughed. A sharp, mean sound. Right. My future father-in-law invited my dropout brother he's never met. Trigani. Try again. It's true. You're delusional. You've always been delusional. Making up stories to feel important. He turned to Mom. Get him out of here before the ceremony. Mom grabbed my other arm. Danny, please. Just go. Don't ruin this for your sister. The coordinator appeared. Excuse me, but we're about to start. All guests need to be seated. Sarah's eyes were wild. He's not a guest. He's leaving. Actually, the coordinator checked her tablet. Daniel Rivera is seated at table 1. Judge Harrison's table. That's a mistake, Sarah snapped. No mistake, ma'am. Judge Harrison specifically requested he be seated there. Called this morning to confirm. Sarah's face went from white to red. That's impossible. The coordinator smiled politely. Nevertheless. Sir, if you'll follow me to your seat. I looked at Sarah. She was trembling with rage. Congratulations on your wedding, I said quietly, then followed the coordinator. Behind me I heard Mom. How did he manage to trick the judge's office into adding him? The ceremony was beautiful. Mark seemed genuinely in love with Sarah, and she glowed walking down the aisle. Whatever our family issues, I could acknowledge they seemed happy together. I sat at table 1 as promised. Me, Judge Harrison and his wife Patricia, Mark's sister and her husband, and 2 empty seats for the bride and groom during the reception. Tom caught my eye during the ceremony and nodded. Patricia smiled warmly. She knew the whole story. Tom had filled her in years ago. When the ceremony concluded, guests moved to the reception area for cocktail hour. I stayed back, not wanting to create drama before dinner. That's when Mark approached. Daniel Rivera? I turned. Yes. I'm Mark. The groom. He extended his hand, looking puzzled. My father said you were here, but I don't think we've met. We haven't. Congratulations on your marriage. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. How do you know my father? I clerked for him. Years ago. His eyes widened. You clerked for my dad? He never mentioned. Wait, Daniel Rivera. Oh my God. You're Judge Rivera. 9th Circuit. That's right. You're Sarah's brother? The one she said dropped out of law school. I'm her brother, yes. Mark's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion. Realization. Her. She said you dropped out. She said you were working random jobs. She said you'd be embarrassed around accomplished people. She has a particular narrative about me. But you're a federal appellate judge. You're one of the youngest ever appointed. Your confirmation hearings were legendary. You had unanimous Senate approval. Dad talks about you all the time. He says you're the best legal mind he's ever encountered. That's kind of him. Mark ran his hand through his hair. Does Sarah know? No. Does your family know? No. Why not? They never asked. He stared at me. They never asked what you do for a living? They have their story. I'm the failure. Sarah is the success. Anything that contradicts that, they don't want to hear. This is insane. Tom appeared, Patricia on his arm. Mark, I see you've met Daniel. Dad, why didn't you tell me Sarah's brother is Judge Rivera? I assumed you knew. He's family. Sarah told me he dropped out of law school. That he was unemployed. That she didn't want him at the wedding because he'd embarrass us. Tom's face hardened. She said what? Patricia touched his arm. Tom. Not here. Not now. But Tom was already looking across the reception area to where Sarah stood with Mom and Dad, holding court with a circle of guests. This ends now, Tom said. Dinner was called. Guests found their seats. I was at table 1, directly in front of the head table where Sarah and Mark would sit with their bridal party. Sarah walked into the reception hall, stopped and stared at the seating arrangement. I was between Tom and Patricia at the judge's family table. The seat of honor. She made a beeline for our table. There's been a seating mistake, she announced. Tom stood. No mistake, Sarah. Daniel is seated exactly where I want him. Judge Harrison, I appreciate you being kind, but my brother doesn't need to be at the family table. We have a seat for him in the back. Your brother, Tom said slowly, is seated at my table because he's family. To me. Sarah forced a laugh. You're very sweet, but you just met him today. Danny probably told you some story. I've known Daniel for 12 years, Tom interrupted. Since he clerked for me after graduating top of his class from Yale Law. The color drained from Sarah's face. Mom appeared. Is everything all right? Your son, Tom continued, his voice carrying now, drawing attention from nearby tables, is one of the finest legal minds I've ever encountered. Which is why I championed his nomination to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals 2 years ago. Mom laughed uncertainly. Danny isn't a judge. He's Judge Daniel Rivera, Patricia said firmly. Confirmed unanimously by the Senate. The youngest appellate judge appointed in 2 decades. And one of our dearest friends. Sarah was shaking her head. No. That's not possible. Danny dropped out of law school. He's unemployed. I graduated from Yale Law, I said quietly. Top of my class. I never dropped out. Dad had joined the group now. You said you were taking classes. I was. Law school classes. You said you had a legal position, Mom whispered. I did. Clerk for the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Then associate justice position. Then appellate judge. Sarah's voice was high and thin. You've been lying to us for years? I've never lied to you. I told you exactly what I was doing. You chose not to hear it. Tom's voice cut through. He told you he went to Yale. He told you he had a legal position. He told you the truth. You created a narrative and refused to listen to anything that contradicted it. Mark was standing now too, looking between me and Sarah. Sarah, you told me your brother was a failure. You told me he'd embarrass us. I thought. Sarah's hands were shaking. He never corrected me. You never asked, I said. The nearby tables had gone quiet. People were watching. Sarah turned to Tom. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, Patricia said, not unkindly but firmly. You had your story. Your brother was easier to dismiss than to understand. Mom grabbed my arm. Danny, why didn't you tell us? I tried, Mom. Multiple times. But every time I mentioned an achievement, you changed the subject to Sarah's successes. After a while I stopped trying. Dad's face was red. This is absurd. If you're really some big shot judge, why didn't you just force us to listen? Because I wanted to see if anyone would care enough to ask. No one ever did. Sarah's maid of honor approached, whispering urgently. Sarah, everyone's staring. We need to start the reception. Sarah looked at me with something between fury and humiliation. You let me invite you out of my own wedding. You let me tell you that you weren't good enough. You knew the whole time that you know Judge Harrison and you said nothing. You told me I would embarrass you, I said evenly. I tried to respect your wishes. By showing up anyway? Judge Harrison invited me. I accepted his invitation. Tom placed a hand on my shoulder. Daniel is here as my guest and as family. If that's a problem, Sarah, perhaps you should consider why you're more upset about being wrong than about how you've treated your brother. The reception hall was nearly silent now. 200 guests watching the family drama unfold. Mark stepped forward. Sarah, maybe we should. No. Sarah's voice was sharp. Everyone is acting like I'm the villain here. Danny has been lying by omission for years. Letting us think he was a failure when apparently he's some hotshot judge. That's manipulative. Manipulative. Patricia's voice was ice. Or self-preservation? A new voice entered the conversation. Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt. A woman in her 60s approached. Distinguished, wearing judicial robes over her formal dress. Judge Catherine Morrison. California Supreme Court Justice. I'd argued a case before her last year. Judge Rivera, she said warmly, I didn't realize you'd be here. I attended because Tom invited me, but this is a lovely surprise. She turned to Sarah. You must be so proud of your brother. His recent opinion on the voting rights case was brilliant. It's being studied in law schools across the country. Sarah couldn't speak. Judge Morrison continued, oblivious to the tension. And so young. Most appellate judges wait until their 50s. But Daniel earned it. Tom, you trained him well. Tom smiled tightly. Daniel trained himself. I just had the privilege of watching. Another voice. Judge Rivera. I didn't know you'd be here. A young man approached, mid-20s, eager. One of Mark's colleagues from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Sir, I just wanted to say your opinion on the Henderson case changed how we approach prosecutions. It's required reading in our office now. I nodded politely. Thank you. He turned to Sarah and Mark. You're so lucky. Having Judge Rivera in the family must be incredible. The guy's a legend. Sarah made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. More people were approaching now. Judges who'd recognized me. Attorneys who'd argued before me. People congratulating Sarah on having such an accomplished brother. Each compliment was a knife. Mom was crying quietly. Dad looked like he'd been punched. Sarah turned to me, her voice breaking. Why didn't you just tell us? I did tell you, Sarah. Every time. You just never heard it. But you could have. What? Forced you to listen? Demanded you acknowledge my achievements? Begged you to be proud of me? kept my voice level. I told you I went to Yale. I told you I worked in law. I told you I had a position at the court. You chose to hear dropout and unemployed. That was your choice, not mine. Mark touched Sarah's arm. Sarah, he's right. I remember you telling me he dropped out. You said it multiple times. You said he was the family embarrassment. Because that's what I thought. Sarah's voice cracked. That's what Mom and Dad always said. We never said drop out, Mom protested weakly. We assumed. You assumed I was a failure, I finished. Because Sarah was the golden child and there could only be one success in the family. That's not fair, Dad said. Tom's voice cut through. Actually, David, it is fair. I've heard Sarah describe her brother exactly that way. The dropout. The embarrassment. The one who couldn't hack it. He looked at Sarah. You specifically told my son that Daniel would embarrass us at this wedding. Sarah was sobbing now. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, Patricia said gently. There's a difference. The wedding coordinator appeared, looking stressed. I'm so sorry, but we need to start the formal reception. Dinner is getting cold. Mark nodded. Of course. Sarah, let's. How can we start? Sarah's voice was raw. Everyone just heard that I disinvited my brother, a federal judge, from my wedding because I thought he was a loser. Well, Tom said quietly, you did do that. Sarah turned on him. You knew. This whole time you knew and you didn't tell us. I assumed Daniel had told you. Why would I imagine a man wouldn't tell his own family about becoming a federal judge? It seemed impossible that they wouldn't know. But when you realized we didn't know, I invited him to the wedding as my guest. What you chose to assume about that invitation was your business. A man approached, late 50s, sharp suit, authoritative presence. Tom. Great to see you. He clapped Tom on the shoulder, then noticed me. Judge Rivera. I didn't expect to see you here. Tom smiled. Bill, meet Sarah Harrison, Mark's bride and Daniel's sister. Bill extended his hand to Sarah. Bill Morrison. I'm on the 9th Circuit with your brother. He's the best thing to happen to our court in years. You must be incredibly proud. Sarah's hand hung limply. Yes. Bill didn't notice the tension. Your brother's brilliant. Honestly, he'll probably be on the Supreme Court shortlist in the next decade. Mark that in your calendar. You'll get to attend his confirmation hearings. They're quite something. He wandered off to get a drink. Sarah looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. Supreme Court, she whispered. I shrugged. It's just speculation. Danny, she stopped. I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you treated me that way or sorry that you were wrong about me? She flinched. Mom touched my arm. Danny, please. We didn't understand. If you'd just been more clear. I was clear, Mom. You chose not to hear me. There's a difference. Patricia spoke up. If I may, I think the bride and groom should start their reception. This is their wedding day. These family matters can be discussed another time. Tom nodded. Patricia's right. Sir Mark, this is your day. Let's not let it be ruined further. Sarah looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Respect. Mixed with devastation. Will you stay? She asked quietly. For the reception? I considered. Part of me wanted to leave. To let them sit with what they'd learned. But another part, the part that still remembered being 7 years old and looking up to my big sister, softened. I'll stay. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. As she and Mark walked to the head table, I heard her whisper to him, I'm the worst person alive. He squeezed her hand. No. But you have some serious apologizing to do. The reception proceeded awkwardly. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. But there was a pall over everything, the whispers spreading through the guest list like wildfire. Did you hear? The bride tried to ban her own brother, a federal judge, from the wedding. She thought he was unemployed? How do you not know your brother is a judge? The family must be mortified. I could see Sarah's smile getting more strained with each passing minute. Mom and Dad sat at their table looking shell-shocked. During dessert, Sarah's best friend Emily approached our table. Judge Rivera? I'm so sorry, but Sarah asked if you'd come speak with her privately for a moment. I followed Emily to a quiet corner of the venue. Sarah stood there, mascara smudged, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I'm so sorry, Danny. I know. No, you don't. I'm not sorry I was wrong. I'm sorry I never asked. I'm sorry I created this whole narrative about you being a failure because it made me feel better about myself. That surprised me. Made you feel better? You were always smarter than me. Even when we were kids, you understood things faster. You saw connections I missed. It scared me. She wiped her eyes. So when you said you were taking classes, I jumped on the chance to believe you dropped out. Because if you'd failed, then I hadn't spent my whole life competing with someone better than me. I didn't know what to say. Mom and Dad did the same thing, she continued. They needed me to be the golden child because you were so effortlessly brilliant. They created this hierarchy where I was the successful one, so they wouldn't have to acknowledge that you surpassed all of us without even trying. Sarah. I uninvited my brother, a federal appellate judge, from my wedding because I was terrified he'd outshine me even while being unemployed. How pathetic is that? It's not pathetic. It's human. It's cruel. And I'm so sorry. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. And I saw what I'd been too hurt to see before. Not malice. Not hatred. Just insecurity wearing a mask of superiority. I forgive you, I said quietly. She started crying harder. How can you forgive me? I've been horrible to you for years. Because you're my sister. And because I understand what it's like to feel like you're not enough. She laughed through tears. You're a federal judge at 34. I'm also someone whose family didn't want him at a wedding. Achievement doesn't erase that pain. He hugged me then. Tight and desperate. I'm going to make this right, she whispered. I don't know how, but I will. An hour later, Sarah stood to give her speech. The traditional thank you to guests, parents, new in-laws. But she went off script. I need to say something, she began, her voice shaking. Earlier today I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. I tried to exclude my brother from this wedding because I thought he wasn't successful enough to be here. The room went silent. I was wrong. My brother is Judge Daniel Rivera of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. He's one of the youngest federal judges ever appointed. He's brilliant, accomplished, and kind. And I was so insecure about my own achievements that I spent years convincing myself he was a failure. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Danny told our family what he did. Multiple times. We chose not to hear him because it was easier to have him be the unsuccessful one while I was the golden child. That says everything about us and nothing about him. He turned to me, tears streaming. Danny, you're the best person I know. You achieved incredible things and you never needed to brag or force anyone to acknowledge them. You just quietly became extraordinary. And instead of celebrating you, I tore you down to make myself feel better. I'm so sorry. The room was completely still. So I want everyone here to know, my little brother is my hero. And if you take away one thing from this wedding, I hope it's that success isn't about titles or positions. It's about character. And Danny has more character in his little finger than I've had in my entire life. She raised her glass. To my brother, Judge Daniel Rivera. The best man I know. The room erupted in applause. I stood and walked to Sarah. She fell into my arms, sobbing. Thank you, I whispered. I meant every word. Things changed after the wedding. Mom and Dad called the next week. She called. For hours we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. They apologized. They asked questions. They listened to my answers. Dad asked to visit my chambers. When he saw my name on the door, he cried. Sarah and I had lunch every month now. She'd started therapy, working through the competitive dynamic our parents had created. She asked about my cases, my life, my experiences. Mark became a genuine friend. We discovered we both loved basketball and started playing pickup games on weekends. Tom and Patricia had me over for family dinners. You were always family, Tom said. Now everyone knows it. The family group chat was different now too. Sarah, Danny, can I call you? Need advice on something. Mom, Danny, we saw your opinion was cited in the news. So proud of you. Dad, son, I'm telling everyone at the office about you. Hope that's okay. It was odd being seen after so many years of invisibility. But it was also healing. One evening, Sarah and I sat on her porch, drinking wine and watching the sunset. Do you ever wish you'd told us sooner? She asked. Forced us to listen? I thought about it. Sometimes. But I think it happened the way it needed to. You all had to confront why you didn't want to know. If I'd forced the information on you, you might have acknowledged it but not truly heard it. That's very wise. I'm a judge. It's kind of my job. She laughed, then grew serious. I'm glad you came to the wedding. Even though I told you not to. Tom didn't give me much choice. Dad wanted to know why you'd let us treat you like that for so long. Why you didn't fight harder to make us see you. What did you tell him? That you shouldn't have to fight your own family to be seen. That the fact that you had to fight at all was the problem. I nodded slowly. That's exactly right. She refilled our glasses. To being seen. To being heard, I countered. We clinked glasses and watched the sun slip below the horizon. For the first time in years I felt like I had my sister back. And that was worth more than any title could ever be.